Well, hey guys, welcome back to Waters Family Homestead. All right, so temps are getting colder, and I do have a couple chickens molting, but they're still laying pretty decent to be this time of year. So I had to get the lights remounted because they keep knocking them down. So I got that one mounted. I hope it'll stay. If they don't try to roost on it, it'll stay. And then this one clamps up to the rafter. It's hard for y'all to see. Let me get over here where you can see through the door. All right, and zoom in. See, that one clamps to the rafter. That one's clamped to screws screwed into the joist. So anyway, it'd be too high on the rafter. They're roosted this high. And then this one in the last pen, hard for y'all to see, but it mounts. I screw it straight to the wall. Looks darker on camera than it actually is for whatever reason, but I've got it remounted. I plugged it all in. All the bulbs are good this year. I didn't have to replace any bulbs, which is wow. Almost always have to replace some bulbs. But, you know, when they outlawed, supposedly whatever the law was that changed the regular incandescent bulb, that's what I use. I'd use a 100-watt bulb, but you can't get them. You can get a 72-watt halogen or whatever. So that's normally what I buy and put in my lights for the chickens, and that puts off a lot of heat. They don't need 72 degrees, 68 degrees. They just need a warm source that they can go to, and they huddle up and they're fine. We don't get extended periods of, below 32 degrees down here. So we do get a lot of 28 to 32, but our pipes don't freeze. It doesn't stay cold long enough usually. For the most part in Southwest Georgia, and in order for your pipes to freeze, it's got to be well below 32 for a long period of time. Imagine putting a tray of water, old ice cube tray of water in your freezer. In 30 minutes or an hour or 3 hours, that ice is not frozen solid. That water's not frozen solid, so you don't have ice cubes yet. So it has to be below 32 for an extended period of time, 5, 6, 7 hours, whatever it is, for that water to freeze or, to be that cold. So their water rarely freezes unless it gets below 28, and because it's always refilling itself. So I don't have to worry about that. I have thought about buying the little pads that you put under the waterers, but they're made for metal waterers, not plastic. And I've only had their water freeze, I think, once last year, and then I don't even think it froze the year before. So anywho, being out in what we call out in the country, living out of the city and town areas. I live out in the country, not a lot of neighbors, none right here around me, but they're further down. But I have to worry about my well. I have a well, to pump my own water. I'm not on city or county water or whatever. So I have to keep that well warm. And I've also got a filter in there that filters all the water that comes on my property. So that way, I don't want that filter to get below 40 degrees, basically. 38 to 40 degrees is as cold as I want it to get. I don't want it to even think about freezing. Look at him, y'all. He's chewing on his brand new cable. Stop. Stop. He's going to chew that coating off, and then it'll start rusting, and then it'll break. But anyway, so I ran extension cord. I'm going to walk back here and show y'all. Let me get there. I'm going to pause it. So I do a video on this every year pretty much. It's called a thermocube. If I can turn around. Oh, that's upside down. Let's see if I can spin it. I don't know. There you go. I can see that. But it's called a thermocube. And it's got 2 receptacles built in it. When it gets below 40 degrees, it turns those receptacles on. And you see I plugged my multi-adapter in. It's got 3 plugs in it. And then all 3 lights for the chicken pens plug into that. So when these receptacles here, since that the temperature is below 40, it brings the lights on so they get heat well before it gets below freezing. And now back here, since I am building new pens in the next year or so, I don't want this cord dragging on the ground where I'm going to hit it with the lawnmower, trip over the weed eater or whatever, which I rarely weed eat. But so I ran it through the fence here. And then I came down and ran it through the fence here. The heavy fence, not the chicken wire. It's mounted to the pole here and there. And then I ran it round to the corner, and a piece of the wire left, wrap it through there. I can still move it, but it'll keep it from unraveling and pulling back. So that keeps it off the ground for me. And run around this corner T-post, the wood post, and then the T-post, and run it over to the pump house. And I plug it in to a receptacle I put there. Now, I could put a weatherproof cover on there, and I probably will this year. We've got the while in use covers at work. Means I can have a cord plugged in and still be protected. So I'll probably put one of them here just to keep the receptacle out of the weather, but I haven't ever had an issue with it. That's his dark bark box, and it's dead. So I've got to change it out, but I usually don't change it until he starts that unnecessary barking. So inside the pump house, y'all, I did a video on it last year. This pump house used to be 4 foot by 8 foot, and I divided it in half. Right there at the back edge, there was 4 more feet. I divided it in half and made that part a doghouse from my old pit bull. And there was a hole in the top of the wall to let the heat come from the pump house into his house. That way I had one bulb keeping the dog warm and keeping my well warm. Well, I rebuilt it this year because this dog won't use this doghouse. He likes the one he's got, and he's got his own light in his doghouse for heat. Now, I've got one clamped to the rafter up there, and it's got a black light in it, which same wattage, plugs into the thermal cube in here. So when the pump house gets below 40, it brings those receptacles on, brings that light on, and it warms the pump house up. You see, that's my filter. It's been there for 13 years, y'all. Fixing to be 14 years. Flying. But anyway, so that's how I keep my chickens warm during the colder months of the year, or for Southwest Georgia, the colder weeks of the year. We have a short winter. It's only a couple of months long, 3 months at the most. It's usually about 2 months from where it gets cold enough to where we need to wear a jacket to where we can start taking the jacket off. So that keeps my pump house from freezing, keeps Sparky from getting too cold, and most of the time, if it's not below 40, he won't lay inside the pump inside his doghouse anyway. Even when the heat's on, he lays out in the yard. He's got that fur coat, I guess. But that keeps my chickens and turkeys, when I had them, it keeps them warm so that they don't get too cold. And I've never had an issue with the cold weather temps. Now, everybody knows if you want your chickens to lay year round hard, wide open, you can put a bulb on them and light it up and give them artificial light. And it doesn't have to be warm. It can be an LED bulb, but get the sunlight bulb and put in there, and those chickens, it will give them more light and their body will produce more eggs. I don't do that. I'm not trying to make them lay more eggs. I like them taking a little bit of a break in the wintertime. It means they lay longer for years instead of 1 or 2 years. They lay for 3 or 4 years. But this does keep the chickens warm, and I'm sure it does help with egg production a little bit, but I don't have enough of the lights in there to really brighten it up to give them that much artificial light. And again, it only comes on when it's below 40. And in South Georgia, it warms up above 35, 40 degrees fairly fast. during the winter, during the daytime. So the lights don't stay on all the time. And it saves me money on my power bill. It saves me, when I'm running it on off grid, it saves me money from having to produce that power and waste it. So that's the way I keep my chicken or my flock warm. And I do a video for it every year. So this is this year's video, 2025. I hope that helps somebody. You can get those thermal cubes from those two chickens are in the nesting box in there, and they're on top of each other. Anyway, one of them just got out. You can get those thermal cubes off of Amazon. That's where I bought them from. I don't know where else to get them. You may get them from a hardware store or something. I've never looked in there and seen them. But they're not very expensive. I think they're well worth their money. For what they do for you, you don't have to worry about being home to turn the lights on for the heat and turning it off when you don't need it and all that. Those thermal cubes will take care of that for you. So when I build the new pens, that's why I'm not burying the wire back there. Y'all know I had the trencher, and I could easily come out here with that trencher and dig a trench and bury a wire. And same way for the new pens. When I build the new pens, I'm going to dig a trench and I'm going to bury a wire from the panel box, my meter-based panel box, out to the chicken pens, and it'll have its own breaker. And that way, that power will be there, so I don't have to run extension cords anymore. There'll be a receptacle in each chicken pen for me to plug the lights up or the heat up. Excuse me. And that way, if I ever do need to put a warmer on their waterers to keep it from freezing, there'll be a receptacle in each pen where I could easily do that. So y'all know the new pen is going to be here from post, not quite to post, but there's going to be a second post on that corner up here. Where I build the H post, it's going to come off of it and run all the way down in front of the honeybee hive to about where the flagpole is, and come up and then all the way back to this post. So it's going to be a big chicken run area, and they're going to have all new pens, and hopefully make my chickens a little bit happier, and I'll have room for more, because my goal is to have at least 30 hens laying all the time and process chickens every year to put meat in the freezer and still be able to get my 30 eggs a day, basically. That's the goal for the homestead. That supplies me with meat, and it supplies me with chicken. And if you've got enough hens, your hens don't get too old to process, because they get too old, they're just tough. So you want them less than a year and a half old. And I've got some here that aren't even laying yet. I've got some that have started, but so these hens have got a full year before it's time to process them, these younger ones. The older ones, it'll be time to process them somewhere between now and springtime. So I get a decent enough weather and maybe some help, I can process these older hens and roosters and put them in the freezer. And like I say, that's the whole point of a homestead, is to be able to supply yourself with what you need. So I get eggs, I eat a lot of eggs, but also sell a lot of eggs. And I give my family eggs. I don't charge for those. And every American family eats a lot of chicken. So I can put chickens in the freezer. Now, being as how I ran a grocery store for, didn't run it the whole time, but worked in a grocery store for 30-something years. I cut meat for a long part of that. So when I process my chickens, I don't just process them whole and put them in the freezer. I cut them up. So I've got the wings separate, and the thighs separate, and the legs separate, the breasts separate, and pulley bones sometimes. So I cut them up and store them that way. But it adds meat to the homestead and to my family and friends. So that's kind of the whole point of a homestead. Junior, you look like you're feeling a little better. Your feathers are getting a little thicker there, buddy. Getting cool. Boy, his spurs are long. He breaks one off every now and then, and it grows right back. But either way, guys, that is how I keep my flocks warm during the winter, and how I keep my pump house warm, and how I keep my dog warm, all of that. So hope that helps y'all. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you have not. It really helps me a lot. My channel is over 4 years old, and y'all see I'm about 760-ish subscribers. I've been in the 750 something range for almost a year now. YouTube suppresses my channel, holds me back. If I gain a few subscribers, they delete a couple subscribers. So check and make sure you're subscribed. It really helps me. And my goal is to get about 5,000 subscribers on this channel. That would be awesome. And I'm a long ways from that. So I appreciate each and every one of y'all very much. Remember what I've always told you. Jesus Christ loves you, and so do I. Y'all be safe. Be prepared.